Hi, I'm going to present now our submission for the European Parliament competition. It was 2 years ago. I'm going to first say a few words about the office. KAAN Architecten is an office based in Rotterdam, Sao Paulo, and Paris, and it operates internationally. If I had to synthesize a bit our philosophy, I would say our design is process-based. I'm not going to explain this now because I think it will be visible from the competition process I'm going to explain. But what it's important to us is that this process design, it allows us to build a narrative behind the project, and through this narrative we can integrate every aspect that we feel important from the very beginning. And the goal of doing this is to achieve flexibility and durability, in this sense to always create a long-lasting project. I'm just going to show a few images to understand a bit. So this is a renovation and expansion of a museum in the Netherlands. The new courthouse in Amsterdam. Another renovation and expansion of a museum in Belgium. This Chambre des Métiers in France, and this was the biggest competition we did before the European Parliament. It's a competition for Schiphol Airport. Luckily, that one we won, so now we are in the process of technical design of building this. But about the Parliament, so SPAC is one of the two buildings of European Parliament, the one in Brussels. The other one is, of course, in Strasbourg. It's in the very heart of Brussels city, and it's called SPAC after Paul Henry Spaak, who was a Belgian politician who chaired the first meeting of United Nations. This is the whole complex of the European Parliament building from the city side. Sorry. Okay. The main question that posed by the brief was about renewal. So if it's this particular building in the complex was to keep or to demolish. This is a footprint of the whole complex. As you see, the scale in the city, it's a very huge building. This is the part of the building which was the object of the competition. And what's important, of course, we all know that the European Parliament is the only directly democratically elected institution. What maybe not everybody knows is that it's also a venue for celebration, and it's a very public building, so there is a lot of users, which are not only parliamentarians, but there are journalists, visitors, and it has a lot of public function, cultural, catering, a lot of different uses. And the three main goals that the brief posed were social, urban, and environmental. Social, because it was a question of how to represent democracy in a building. And of course, what the European Parliament wanted to embody was transparency and how to make that feel for a building. The urban problem is that, as you saw, the building is very huge. They call it the elephant in the city. So it's about how this relation with the city can be better. And environmental, it's of course because the European Union have quite challenging ambition in terms of circularity and sustainability. So this is Brussels. The European Quarter is right next to the old city center, so it's in the very heart of the city. It is in front of the Leopold Park, which is a park which is part of a bigger network of parks in the city. And all the colored buildings in this map are buildings from the European Union. So it's really a European neighborhood. This is from the park side. As you see, it's a very romantic park, and this is because it was a previous zoo. The ambition, it's going to already give you a preview of what our proposal was, but I'm going to explain that step by step. I just want to say first what for us were the ambition of this. First one was in terms of complement something, because the building, as you saw from the map, it's a part of a bigger complex. It also needed to be future-proof, and it also needed to relate with the park. The second ambition was to showcase, because the specific request for the European Union was to showcase transparency in terms of a metaphor for the institution, to showcase courtesy, and to showcase circularity. Last of the ambition was about the relation with the belonging context. So it's about how to enhance this park, how to enhance the relation between the park and the city, and how to match the scale of the park. Because this Leopold Park, it's populated by numerous small pavilions which have museums inside, and they really didn't match the scale of the building. So this is this park building. This is the city side, but it's also leaning towards this park side in front. So for us, it was really about the duality between the city and the park. This is the building approaching by the park, and this is the building approaching by the city. So the Spark building, it's connected to the Spinelli building. Spinelli, it's the main body of this European Parliament building. The main entrance, the main connection is from the city side. There is a railway passing in front of the Spinelli building, and where there is the car icon, it's the car access for VIP and protocol staff. The black area is the area which was the real object of the competition. So this is the question about keep or demolish, or how to do with this. So this in the picture is the Spark building. As you see, it's a very 90s look, and it's quite huge. So once we look at all the different scale of the urban implementation of this building, for us it was clear that the first, let's say, the first hunch was that we had to withdraw from the park and to leave a bit more space to the park and to match the scale with this reality. Question of how to do that, there was three main topics about strategy. One was to assess, and to assess whether if the program that they required could all fit in the existing building, and if not, what to do with that. I'll explain this, but I'm already going to say the answer is no. The program was not going to fit. So what we did was dismantle parts of this building and to reassemble them in a new result. I said that it didn't fit. Why? Because there was a 45,000 square meter of required netto program that added up more or less to the double in gross square meter, and the existing building was around 85. So it's kind of similar, but the problem was mainly in the proportion of the space. And this is because the European Parliament program had these different themes. So the upper line, so we have chamber, committee, and trialogue. These are the real parliamentarian function where all this meeting and chamber discussion happens. There is then a different layer, semi-public, which is the middle line, which was about VIP and protocol functions, catering, and media. Media is where the journalists go, interview people, interview politicians. And bottom line is the most public program. It's about visitors and about cultural events. So all these different programs had to fit. I'm not going to go in detail into this different program, but it was very complex because it has very specific flows and very specific functions. Okay, we also analyzed the program from a spatial point of view, because I said in terms of square meter, the program could more or less fit, but the main problem was the big chamber. The big chamber, as use proportion, is a theater-like room, so it's round, and it needs to be unobstructed by any structural elements. It really needs to be a giant open circle with a theater-like asset. And there was no way to fit this room in the existing building without highly compromising the functionality of the building. So the idea of withdrawing from the park, together with the fact that the program couldn't fit, is it why we didn't keep the existing building, but we disassemble and reassemble. How we did that? So we by disassemble, I meant we reuse part of the elements, we reuse part of the structure, especially some concrete plate of the structural slab and wooden columns that were already existing, some elements of the facade, and of course in the interior we were going to reuse some of the furniture. I'm not going to go in detail, but this was the construction system our engineers came up. So there was a high percentage of reused recycled elements. all these elements, of course, we couldn't do everything with that. What we did with that is this upper part of the building, this cubic one, which is a grid, and therefore it was very flexible, and the measurement of the elements could fit with the existing one. Now more in detail about the building. Building is made up of 3 elements. The podium. Podium is the new part where we place these very specific functions, the big chambers. The cube is the element mainly made out of recycled and reused elements. And since it has a grid and flexible floor plan, it's where we fit all the offices, media, everything of the program that could fit well in a grid. And the most important part, although not the most visible, was the interface. So how this podium, this cube, and the existing Spinelli would come together. This was about making 2 atrium fit together and be connected with the existing building, and organize all the different flows and distributed them through this area. So this is more or less how the building will look like in the end. So at the bottom left, it's the existing Spinelli building. At the bottom right, it's the new podium. And the big cube on top is what we just call the cube. So while the podium was made really specifically around the dimensioning and the requirements that this chamber have to be, the cube element was made to be future-proof, in the sense that this could grow, that the flexibility of the floor plan could allow for different changing, because the offices are not going to be the same for their whole lifespan, probably. Now I'm going fast through these floor plans of the podium. Podium is this bottom part. You see all these big chambers, the colored one, and they are connected with the existing building through this yellow area, which was the media entrance was. On the level 0 is where there is the connection with the existing street we saw in the diagrams at the beginning. And the cube is this element on top that we just mentioned. I'm also going to go quite fast through this. This was organized in terms of program, in a sense that from the top to the bottom, it's more open towards the public. On the top, we have only trialogue, which is purely parliamentarian flow. And the bottom, this purple part is the cultural and the visitors part. So the closer you are to the entrance, the more public it is, and the more you go up, the more specific the function. So we said it's a grid. It's open toward both the park and the city. It has a central void. The program is concentrated in the middle, while all around there is the circulation, so there is connection with the city the whole time. And we filled up this regular grid with the required program. I'm going to just scroll through this and show some images to better get the feeling of the project, because every people entering, according to the kind of user it is, will have a different experience. There is a specific flow for visitor approaching the building, going to the chambers and going to specific places where they are allowed to go. There is purely public that are going around the building and can access the public terrace, but of course they cannot enter the European Union functions. And there is parliamentarian flow, and of course they are going mostly everywhere, but the important thing is that all these flow were kept separated, although they seem to mix together. So this is the new image from the park side. So from this again, from the front, you see that the intention of this podium was to better match the scale of the park, and the ambition of this cube was to enhance the transparency towards both park and the city. So this is where visitors would go through. They would approach from the park. This is, if they climb up, they will go to this public terrace where all the public can arrive. This is the terrace from the side. This is the approaching from the existing street. This one that in this diagram at the beginning was in between the Spinelli and the SPAC building. And this is really the core of the building, what we call the interface. So below there is the podium, and on top there is the cube. This is this big atrium from the side. If you go down from these escalators, you get to the media level, and if you go up from the escalator, you get to the public foyer, which is the bottom of this cube. This is this atrium of the cube, and all the circulation, it goes around the atrium, so it feels very spatial. But then all the functions are enclosed box, and there is always circulation between function and the facade to increase the transparency. There are bridges connecting these functions in this cube. And here we are again in this interface where the cube is on top and the podium below, and we now go below toward the podium where the chambers are. So going down from the escalator, you would get to the chambers atrium, which is directly below and connected with the cube atrium. It also has bridges to connect the specific function inside. It also feels very transparency, and you also can go around it. Just a closer look at the chambers, how they are going to build and why they are so huge. It's because they have a lot of specific support functioning below them. They have a ring of interpretation booth for the interpreters on top, and they also have another ring of galleries on top. And this was the cover from the park. This is a glimpse of the interior of chamber, where still we could manage to have daylight. This is an image of the committee room that still keeps this strong relation with the park. And this is the building in its complex. And that's all. Thank you. Thank you.